All right, welcome everybody back to another episode of the Big Doug and Carmi Show. You one-stop shop for all things Commanders. It is another mock draft mania episode. As we're about a week and a half, I guess, from the big event. They say, Doug, why is Devin Jackson on? What are we doing here? Philadelphia stuff. Senior editor at the Acquire for Sports. Uh, I love your work, buddy. You've been coming on for the last couple of years. I think nobody is rising faster in the draft community than you are. So we really appreciate you coming on and talk a little football with us.
Yeah, appreciate the invite, and I always enjoy coming on and talking NFL draft. And yeah, like you said, a week and a half away. I'll be there in person, so I'm looking forward to covering it and being up in Green Bay and capturing all the action and reaction and all the things that comes with the NFL draft.
How many prospects are you in now?
I think 226 about ish. I
As I
would
told
say
George,
that I've got like full watches on. Like I've probably seen more like other guys while I'm watching other people, but actually studying about 226.
I told George before you got here, I figured it was in that 250 range. It's a lot of work. When does the process start for you?
Yeah, it starts really in the summer. Getting initial watches on the guys that are expected to be the top prospects heading into the next year's draft, and throughout the season as well. Try to knock out evaluations as I go, and obviously you'd like to revisit them after the season, but I think just watching as I go allows me to get a better handle, especially at the top of the class. So after the season wraps up, you can catch on to some names that might be trending or starting to really garner some attention. And then also just the finalization of some of these prospects. There are guys I watched during the season and talked about during the season that ended up going back to school. So that's also a part of it. But yeah, it's I would say it's about 8-9 month journey where you start really in the summer and maybe slowly work your way through guys. And as the season goes on and as the season wraps up, that's when you start to really ramp up.
Mm.
Well, George, if you fire up the old draft machine here, we're going to do something a little different for those that watch. Because Devin covers the Eagles, we're going to do two teams today. Devin will still GM both of them, but this way we can, maybe get a little idea of what they might be thinking up there in Philadelphia.
Absolutely.
Congratulations, by the way. That had to have been a fun ride last year, Devin.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy, just to see, how the season started. They didn't start off too great and, really got going. And obviously, some things happening along the way, but just all coming together for them. The rookies playing really well, young players playing really well. The defense, really playing dominant down the stretch. Obviously Saquon Barkley. So yeah, it's a lot going on with obviously the Super Bowl and the Super Bowl title, and then even afterwards, even though the Eagles won the Super Bowl, everyone's kind of turning the page and wanting to see who they're going to get. They lost quite a few defensive players, so it'll be interesting to see how this particular mock draft shakes out. Because I think at 32, you just really never know who's going to be on that board.
Absolutely. I find it so funny in the NFL, the season moves so fast, right? We already had the Super Bowl a couple months ago, already looking forward with the draft moving up over here. Devin, I'm just kind of curious. We're about to jump in on the draft. The way we do it with our guests is you make the final selection. We kind of walk through the process. You tell us what players that you're kind of thinking about. We go, educate the fans on basically what players you're looking at here. You're going to draft for Philadelphia and Washington. And I guess before we get started, I'd like to ask you, since you've gone through so many prospects, what do you think is the strength of the class so far? I feel like it's a pretty popular narrative. Running backs are probably a deep draft class, maybe edge as well. But curious of your thoughts.
Yeah, I really like the interior defensive line class, and I really think, I still believe it's Mason Graham at the top, but I think the who's DT2 is always an interesting conversation, and who kind of falls afterwards. And for me, it's Derek Harmon, but I know some people really like Walter Nolan, some people like Kenneth Grant. But I really like the interior defensive line class because there are guys that can play different roles. You can have guys that are more of the run stoppers, traditional defensive linemen, guys that are a little bit more apt to be pass rushers as interior defensive linemen, looking at like guys like Walter Nolan. guys a little bit of both, and guys that play specific roles and schemes, and also versatile guys too. Michael Williams is an edge rusher, but has played some defensive line in his career. Elijah Roberts from SMU is a guy that's played all over the defensive line. So I think when it's all said and done, there's a good chance that maybe some of those edge rushers end up becoming, 3 techs or 5 techs at the NFL level, as opposed to being true edge rushers, which I think could strengthen the interior defensive line class. So I really like the interior D line class. As a super deep group, and I really think a lot of teams are, in the first couple of days of the draft, I think you could see like 12 or 13 guys come off the board.
I can see that for sure. Quick follow-up, actually. Michael Williams seems to be kind of polarizing leading up to the draft. Like about a month ago, he was like a top 15 pick lock, and the Georgia guys were going early. Why, in your opinion, do you see any warts in his game? Like, why, in your opinion, do you think he's starting to fall a little bit? People are starting to say he might be in the late 20s now.
Yeah, I think it's a combination of, him not really being a refined pass rusher just yet. What he brings as a run defender, I feel like it's kind of well documented and, very important in terms of when you look at skill sets. But his pass rush plan is it's just so little, and the opportunities to truly pass rush were not that he didn't have that many opportunities in his final year at Georgia, having to go through the tightrope ankle surgery and trying to work his way back. I just don't think he really got a chance to show his full pass rushing arsenal, and I still think he has a ways to go, which is I think a big reason why maybe people think he might be available in the 20s. But I think he still goes inside the top 10 or 15 because the NFL seems pretty high on him and what he brings.
All right, let's dial it up. We're going to get our mock draft started. We'll watch it slowly go down the draft. Devin, we do have the ability to pause if you want to propose trades and go that route. Just let me know. I'll be the MC and I'll take charge of this. And we'll be looking at number 29 with Washington will be our first pick. We're starting off pretty chalk. Will Johnson, number 5 overall, pretty surprising.
It's not surprising that it sounds like Shore doesn't go 2 or 3 at this point. We've talked a lot about that, George, on the show. I just can't see how you turn down what seemingly are some of the few blue chippers in this entire class. I know quarterback is always important, but.
All right. So, yeah, obviously we're on the board. Devin, if you are interested in trades, please let us know. I don't know if you can see the screen clearly, but Arizona's offering the 47th overall pick and a second and a 4th. Miami's offering 48 and 98 for 29. So they don't seem too appealing to me, but you're the guest. So do you pick whatever you want?
Yeah, I think it's too far back. I would entertain like early, late 30s, early 40s, just because I feel like that's a good range to get a really good player. But I see a player for potentially for Washington that I really like on the board. So I think we'll stick and pick.
All right, sounds good. Would he happen to play linebacker for Alabama? Or you talking about everything?
Yeah, I really like Jahad Campbell as a potential fit here for Washington. I think he's a guy that, I know the shoulder surgery he's having is a little concerning and might cause him to drop a little bit. But, all reports coming out of the combine and what I heard coming out of the combine was that he doesn't make out the top 20 picks. Team like Tampa, I feel like would be really interested when he brings. But, with Jahad Campbell, you're getting a guy that is a 3-down linebacker, a guy that has an edge rushing background, played that in high school and transitioned over to off-ball linebacker in college. Very explosive player, can diagnose plays really quickly. A guy that, can make plays over the middle of the field. They asked him to do Tampa 2 drops, so he's dropping from the middle of the field near the line of scrimmage down the seam and running step for step with tight ends and slot receivers. So he's a guy that fits all the modern things that you look for in a linebacker. And I know the Commanders, you still have Bobby Wagner, but a guy that's aging and you want to continue to add to your linebacker room, get younger. And also when you think about some of the teams that, Washington has to face every year, you look at the Eagles. I know Dallas Goedert is a little bit up in the air, but he's a really good tight end. Dallas with their tight ends. in the Giants obviously as well. I think you also need a guy that can be able to match up with Saquon Barkley potentially too out of the backfield, and I think he brings that ability as well. So that's why when I saw Campbell's still around at 29, I feel like that's a really good pick. And I know like first round linebackers are some people love them, some people don't, but I think when you got the athleticism, the ability to play three downs, the coverage ability, the pass rushing upside. I don't think he's a guy that's going to get you like 7 or 8 sacks, but he can be an effective blitzer on third downs as well. But I think his most valuable trait, especially on third downs, is his ability to cover the middle of the field.
Is it just the shoulder with him? I had heard somewhere that maybe there were some other things. I'm not sure if you've heard that or not.
I think it's mostly the shoulder, yeah. I didn't hear anything character-wise. Everything from what I heard, he's checked out pretty well character-wise. And
I meant injuries, but it's just the shoulder for him.
Yeah. For me, that's all I heard. The shoulder. I haven't heard any other injuries or lingering.
Well, listen, if Jihad Campbell makes it to 29, I'm running the card up myself. So I'm with you. Does the fact that Omari and Hampton or Luther Burden or Josh Connerly give you pause at all? I mean, as a rookie, is there where you just think the talent is so much better with Jihad Campbell?
Yeah, I think I kind of look at this draft as, when you're taking a specific position, what is kind of the next best player? Like, what is the drop off from there? And I feel like the drop off from Jihad Campbell to the next best linebacker is a little bit more drastic than say like an edge rusher, say like an interior defensive lineman. I thought, maybe, and I know Malachi Starks, I think, went in the last few picks before this particular one, but he would have been someone that I may have considered as well. But I think you have Campbell there at the board, and you don't really want to move back too much. And I think I saw a Buffalo trade offer, but to me, that would have been a likely candidate, Campbell or Walter Nolan. But if the Bills traded up one spot, but I feel like with Campbell there on the board, it made the most sense. He's a guy that you can do a lot of different things with. I know Dan Quinn and his defense is known for having really hybrid athletic linebackers too that can play in coverage too. So I think Campbell will fit all those things.
I love it.
Yep. And then Devin, real quick before we move on, you mentioned Malachi Starks, so I'm really high on. I heard you had tremendous interviews at the combine. Are you more of a Malachi Starks guy, that high floor, well-rounded, established safety from Georgia, or are you more looking at the traits that Nick Imamori offers?
Yeah, to me, I think it Starks comfortably, and I like Imamori is a really good athlete. He's a guy that can make a lot of flashy plays over the middle of the field, has a size and athleticism that you really like, but I think he still has a little bit of ways to go in coverage and be more of a natural coverage player. I think he'll do some nice things and taking things away from over the middle of the field and matching up with some tight ends and bigger bodies, but I don't think he's as complete of a player right now as Malachi Starks.
I agree. All right, let's pull the trigger on Jihad Campbell. Let's see what happens in Philadelphia. Potential trade offer over here. You know Howie Roseman likes to do it.
Yeah. Let's see the next one.
All right. That's a good one right here.
Okay. I
Look at the 7th
like that one.
Yeah. And then here we go.
I would say, I definitely want to trade back here because I was kind of holding out and see if Walter Nolan's going to make it at 32, but he ended up going one pick before. So I would definitely like to trade back. I think I'm going to take the Chicago offer, actually.
I like that one better.
You get 2 picks, you get two additional picks in the top 75 and make it a little bit easier for yourself to get another impact player. So I'll take Chicago's offer here. And I think for the Eagles, it makes sense to trade back because obviously coming off the Super Bowl, and everything that happened there, I feel like you were kind of in a position where you can be a little bit more flexible, especially with I feel like the depth of the class is like between picks 35 and 80. I think you have a lot of similar grades in between that range. So I feel comfortable trading back and getting a potential guy on day 2 that we really like.
Was there a particular position you were aiming for at 32 in Philadelphia?
I think based on Howie Roseman's history and tendency to drive trenches, I think
Mm-hmm.
probably somewhere in the trenches, edge rusher, defensive line,
Mm-hmm.
or offensive line. I think those are the three top. But you obviously make exceptions for if a guy like Jahad Campbell or a guy like Malachi Starks are both on the board. I think those are guys that you consider too. But I think trenches would have made a lot of sense. But now to trade back, I think it makes things a little bit more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you see Luther Burden; he's still on the board. Um, Savon Ravel is a guy too that I think the Eagles might at least be interested in. I don't know if they take another high pick this year on defensive back, but I think it would be certainly an interesting one to watch. But as this board kind of fell, I think I'm gonna go with Josh Connerly Jr. from Oregon, the left tackle from Oregon. Kind of stick on the theme of what the Eagles like to do and building in the trenches, but I also think just the way that this board particularly fell, and I consider Tyleik Williams too there,
Yeah.
and the Eagles to bring him for a pre-draft visit just because I feel like they're still trying to figure out what they're going to do with Jordan Davis. They haven't picked up his fifth-year option yet. So I think they brought Tyleik Williams maybe as a potential future run stopper, but I'm gonna go Connerly here because I think the value is really good. I think he's the first
Very
round
good
caliber
value.
tackle, and a guy that probably can start next year in the NFL. But I think for the Eagles' sake, they have a little bit of time that they don't have to roll him out immediately, and immediately have him be the tackle of the future. Because I know Lane Johnson, he just signed an extension and he's planning to play another couple years. But I think the Eagles want to find kind of their right tackle of the future. And while Connerly only has played left tackle, I think he could make a lot of sense as a potential tackle of the future. Maybe you consider him as a short term guard, long term tackle. But I think just in general, stick on the theme of the Eagles liking to go trenches, a high caliber athlete that can make blocks in space. It's really sound pass protector. I think he can add some more strength to his body and tighten up his anchor. But a really good player. They're available at 39, and you get a potential high ceiling offensive lineman that can be a future star for you.
And George, I think he might be too much value to pass up at 29.
I agree.
I can see the Commanders liking a guy like that. If Banks somehow fell, I don't see it, but people are worried about Simmons' injury. But I mean, to me, tackle is still in play.
I agree 100%. All right, take a look at the board. Landon Jackson's off the board. Quinshon Junkins, Caleb Johnson. Running backs are starting to come off. Zariah Thomas, Darian Porter, Jalen Noel. All right, 2 trade offers on the board. Number 61 for 118 and next year's second for Atlanta. That's interesting, but maybe going back a little bit too far. We see the Arizona pick, 78, 115, and the 3rd round pick. So that was a little bit more interesting. What's up to you, Devin?
I think stick and pick here.
Okay.
I think it certainly is interesting, but I mean, there's a number of players on the board that you go like, maybe I want to stick with this one.
Okay.
So this is interesting, just because I feel like there are a few edge rushers that I can consider here. I think Brady Swinson is a really good player.
You can pull it. You can look at edge if you want.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't say too many great options here at edge. I think Brady Swinson certainly you would take a look at, but I don't think you pick him this early.
The running back potentially, if you want to look at that, the wide receiver.
Yeah, let's see what wide receivers are on the board here. Okay. All right. So you got Jaden Higgins, be interesting. Jalen Royals, interesting. What about defensive backs? Which defensive backs still on the board? Yeah, again, not. I don't think yeah, they did.
Go back to the big board too if you want to look at that. The big board.
Yeah, I think.
All right, let's see. 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 Let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
I'm kind of surprised Williams has dropped this low. I mean, they're mock drafts, and you know how that goes. But maybe I'm higher on him than. And Mason Taylor, I think, is interesting too.
Yeah, let's see. I'm taking.
Yeah, it's a tough board to be honest with you. The most intriguing one to me will probably be Jaden Higgins. To be honest with you, I kind of like him or Jalen Royals.
That dude, Eric.
Yeah,
I was gonna say the dude from Darius Alexander.
Yeah.
I've been hearing a lot more chatter
Me too.
about.
Me too.
yeah. Let me see. I think I'm gonna go receiver here.
Okay.
And I think I'm gonna go Jaden Higgins.
Okay.
Because I feel like the way that this board is kind of fallen, it's I think Tyler Williams is certainly an intriguing player. I don't know if he necessarily fits for what Washington wants to do defensively, but he's a really good player, and I'm kind of surprised he's there at 61 overall. But I like Jaden Higgins. I think he has inside out ability, big slot potential. Moves incredibly well for his size, very smooth route runner. And I think he's going to complement some of the weapons inside the receiver room for the Commanders really well. I know they have the Terry McLaurin. They obviously traded for Deebo Samuel, who is going to get some manufactured touches as well. But I think they need another downfield option, go-to receiver. I think he's a little bit more of a possession type of receiver, not necessarily one to take the top off of defense, but I really like his skill set and a potential rapport that he could build with Jaden Daniels.
All right,
and certainly a different body size than what we have in the receiver room, right?
Yeah,
100%.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, we see 2 potential trades on the board. I don't know if you want to still wheel and deal. Atlanta's hoping for somebody. They offered the same pick to Washington a couple picks ago. And we're over here with Arizona, number 78, that 3rd round pick.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna stay here. All right, so this one, I think defensive tackle probably makes the most sense, but I think I'm gonna go tight end here. I'm gonna go Mason Taylor for the Eagles because they are still trying to figure out what they want to do with Dallas Goedert and what his future lies. Currently, I don't think he's getting any great tight end or great trade offers right now, which is why the Eagles have kind of kept on to him and not made any moves with him just yet. But it seems like they're planning on potentially moving on from him. I mean, you get Mason Taylor, a guy that can create after the catch, really smooth route runner, has great hands. Doesn't bring you a lot as a blocking tight end. I still think that's probably not his strong suit, but in terms of receiving ability, in terms of finding soft spots in the zone, just having natural feel and ability at tight end, I think he makes sense here for the Eagles to kind of figure out tight end wise what they're going to do in the future and potentially down the line as well. I think they kind of like patched up the position behind Goddard. They had Grant Calcaterra around for the last few years. He's filled in while Goddard has been hurt, but I just think they need to kind of reset the position and find a guy that is a pretty good athlete and can work over the middle of the field. I think Mason Taylor checks off those boxes.
All right, let's do it.
We're down here at 64. I could see the Chiefs taking him at 32, or I mean 31. Would be an interesting pick for them.
Yeah, it seems like he's trending that way as of late. So we'll see when it's all said and done. Back here with the Eagles here at 72. Let me see.
Yeah, let me know if you want me to go to a specific position. I can always filter it that way as well.
Yeah, I think if I can take a look at the edge room right now, see what. Okay. I think they have another pick at 96 too, so I think we might be able to wait a little bit on edge. I'll look at the defensive tackle class and see.
Still some juice left in the D tackle.
Yeah. Yeah, this is interesting. So I'm kind of stuck between two players here. Defensive tackle. I really like Omar Norman Lott,
Hmm.
the defensive
Mhm.
tackle from Tennessee. His pass rushing ability, even though he had limited snaps in that kind of rotation on Tennessee's front, I think his juice would make a lot of sense for the Eagles. I also know I think he had a little bit of an injury history too, which just kind of made people's evaluation a little uncertain on him, and might be a pass rushing guy only. But I'm thinking between him and Shamar Turner, because I think
Turner.
both of those guys, yeah, both guys, I think
Hmm.
bring similar characteristics. Um, but I'm gonna go Omar Norman a lot here. I just think pass rush wise, Eagles are going to be missing the most from Milton Williams' departure to the Patriots, and I know they have some guys in a room that they really like, some young guys they have in a room, but I don't think they bring the same pass rushing upside, outside Jalen Carter. So we'll go Norman a lot here.
All right.
What is the deal with Jordan Davis as a Bulldog stan? I really thought he was going to be a plug and play type guy. Is it a weight issue? What is the deal with him?
I think it is a little combination of definitely some weight concerns I would say early in his career, but also just um, kind of the lack of pass rushing juice that he has right now. Like he can push the pocket right now, but he doesn't bring you a whole lot else. So I think
Yeah.
it's been hard for the Eagles to find more snaps for him because he's not as productive as a pass rusher. So it's kind of made relegated him to more of a rundown, early rundown player. Although I thought he had a really good playoff run, and towards the end of the season, he really
Hmm.
started to turn a little bit. So I think they're to me, it seems like they're going to play out his final year and see what they want to do
Okay.
at the conclusion of the year. Or if he's playing well enough early on, they might do the extension during the season. So I think it's kind
Mhm.
of a wait and see thing right now to whether or not they're going to pick up his 5th year option.
Okay.
All right, quick recap. We're on the board at number 96. We selected for the Eagles Josh Connerly, Mason Taylor, Omar Norma Lutz. We kind of built the trenches up, the offensive line, defensive line, and tight end. So we have those options. We're on the board again, and we're looking at potential picks. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think this is a good edge slash safety range.
Okay.
So if you look at edge first and see who's on the board, because I
Okay.
think I have at least one player in mind, and then safety. We'll look at safeties real quick.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I'm gonna go edge. I'm gonna go edge here, and I'm gonna go Jordan Birch. He was one of those guys I talked about a little bit. I was kind of alluding to earlier that might be a guy that moves from the edge to the defensive line. But
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a bigger edge, a guy that has some really good athleticism for his size. I thought he did some nice things, winning on the outside shoulder of tackles, showing some alignment versatility, winning as an interior defensive lineman as well. And the activity that he brings is both a pass rusher, run defender. I think he's a guy that would make a lot of sense along that Eagles defensive line and bring you some versatility in that room as well.
Got it. And Devin, in regard to the edge class, because I feel like that's a really high need for Washington, where do you see like the tier or the fall off from like an immediate starter pass rusher to more of a rotational defensive tackle position, right? Like I feel like, Donovan Azaraki is probably like, edge 5 or something like that. But do you see a major drop off between him and Landon Jackson and potentially I forget Femi Oladipo, I guess, from the UCLA? Like where do you see like the tiers and the breakoffs from like class A to class B in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it gets really interesting probably after the first 2 rounds. I
Okay.
think like guys like JTT from Ohio State. I think
Mhm.
is kind of more in that second and third tier. Because to
Mhm.
me, I'll pull out my rankings real quick to kind of give
Sure.
an idea of how I kind of see the edge class and maybe some of the tiers that goes with it as well.
Mhm.
So just give me a second here.
Yeah, no worries.
All right.
Doug looking at the
So
board. Go ahead.
so I think probably the elite pass rushers, not necessarily reflective in my rankings, but I think the elite pass rushers right now, I would say Abdul Carter and Mike Green. I think you look at some more of the high upside, low floor type of guys. I
Mm-hmm.
put in the bucket Shamar Stewart, Michael Williams, and James Pierce Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Productive and young. I would look at Nick Scorton and Donovan Ezeraku as guys in kind of that range. Really productive players that maybe doesn't have as high as ceilings, but are still really good players. JTT from Ohio State, Landon Jackson from Arkansas. And then, kind of everyone else afterwards, guys like Braden Swinson, um, Jordan Birch will fall in this kind of that range. Um, Plays like that are really good players, but maybe are going to be rotational guys early in their career. Oladejo is another guy I put in that kind of mix. So I think you kind of have different guys in different stages of their development of their careers right now, and I think it makes it interesting to see and I think we can get guys maybe early day 3 as potential stars, but I think the true stars are probably around like the mid third round, early to mid third round area is where you start to see a drop off.
Fall off. Makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
I just saw David Walker go. I think they had him in for a 30 visit, if I'm not mistaken. Commanders did.
Yep.
Yeah, there is.
All right.
All right.
Here are 128. I think this is where you want to look at edge and safety. I think that's where you're going to start to see some potential value on the board, but also guys that might make a lot of sense defensively. We'll take a look at safeties real quick too. Okay, I think I'm more inclined here to probably. Oh, let's look at corners too. I want to see who might be around corner wise.
All right.
Quincy Riley was just in for a 30.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go Quincy Riley here. Just looking at kind of the edge class and where it sits right now, I think the better player right now on the board is Quincy Riley. Feisty corner that I think he has inside out versatility. I think he could play nickel at the NFL level, but I think he has enough size to play as outside corner. A guy that likes to play that kind of that bump and run coverage, likes to be in the face of receivers and run step for step with them. Gets his hands on a lot of footballs down the field. Has a really good man coverage technique. Has some good eyes in zone coverage. So I think you're getting a guy that can play a little bit of both of man and zone and bring some coverage ability. And I think he can fit pretty well for Dan Quinn's defense.
All right. Sounds good. Let's pull the trigger. Do you have any interest in Jack Sawyer by any chance from Ohio State?
Yeah, I think he's a kind of what you see, what you get type of player where he's going to be very powerful, crashing down, the pocket, heavy-handed, going to be a really good run defender and hold his point of attack. I don't know if he's going to be ever a high-end type of pass rusher, but I think he's a guy that can come in and be a solid piece in the edge room.
Yeah, I can see that. All right, back on the board at 161 for Philadelphia.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Kyle Monangai here for running back, and I know that the Eagles have done some work in the running back room, but also they've added some players as well. They added AJ Dillon. Obviously, they have Will Shipley from last year too, but I think bringing in Monangai, he's more of a in between the tackles type of back, and I think he's a kind of insurance guy if AJ Dillon doesn't end up working out as being more of a power back. And I also love his pass protection skills. I think that's going to be extremely valuable, especially with the Eagles losing Kenny Gainwell. I think that's going to be an underrated loss for the Eagles because he was their third down back, splitting time with Saquon Barkley, but also he excelled at being a pass protector, and that was a big reason he was on the field and why they relied on him so much in critical third down situations, even with Saquon on the team. So I think Monangai can fit a little bit of that third down role where maybe he doesn't bring the same type of juice as a receiver, but if you need a guy to pass protect and be able to hold blitz and linebacker, I think Monangai is willing to do that and shown that ability. Plus, I think the Eagles they like to have another running back in the room to continue to develop what they have and have the best three guys going into the season.
George, this is why we do this. We've done
Absolutely.
like 10 mocks before, and it's the first time we've ever talked about Monangai. So I'm into it. This is why we do these things. I love
Absolutely. I love it. Definitely different eyes on the board is very interesting. I was like, Monangai's very interesting. Definitely intrigued to learn more about him. I'm curious about RG Harvey. I've heard really good things about him. I was surprised you took Monangai over Harvey. Have you done any research on Harvey yet? Have you kind of done a profile on him? What's your thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think it was more of a scheme thing,
Gotcha.
fit, and I think Harvey is more of a guy to take a little bit more of the load in a running back room.
Yeah.
I don't think he's like like a dynamite athlete, but he's a really good player, really good athlete. Can make guys miss, more of a run through you versus a little bit more wiggle on the edge. But I really like what he brings, and I think he brings a receiving component as well to his game.
Gotcha. Monangai to Philadelphia. Perfect. Let's do it. Back on the board, back-to-back picks. Eagles are flush with picks.
Yeah, they have a lot of fifth-round picks. Let's see. Can you show me again who we already have?
Let's go over here.
Yeah. Just want to get kind of a gauge here.
Okay. It's a nice little haul so far. I'll tell you that.
Absolutely.
I'll look at corner. See what the corners are available.
How much do you think Howie wants to be able to trade some of these fifths to pick up something for next year?
Oh, for sure, definitely. I think they're always looking to move around, and I only made one trade. They'll probably make 3 or 4 by when it's all said and done. Just because they like to move around the board a little bit.
What's more likely? Go ahead. Finish your thought. I'll jump in.
I was just gonna say you can look at safeties, but you can ask your question now.
Yeah, I was gonna say, what is more likely? Are they gonna maybe get potential picks for next year, or do you see them potentially pushing in the chips and taking some picks and moving up for a prospect?
I think probably. I mean, I honestly could see them doing both. Honestly, if the right guy's on the board, with one of the first couple picks. But I think they're just going to move around and try to get the best value they think they can get. And I think especially with like the later round picks, they're going to be moving off of a good bit of them because they also don't have the money to just pay all these late rounders. Since they invested so much money in their offense so far. So I can see them doing both.
Exactly. I thought the Eagles had like 20 picks over the next 2 or 3. I think over the next 2 years they have 20 picks or something crazy like that, which is fantastic. But they're likely not going to make the team, so they kind of have to trade them one way or the other, in my opinion. So it'll be interesting.
Plus they're going to get a bunch of comp picks next year too for all the guys they lost to. So that'll be coming in for them in the 2026 draft. Can we take a look at linebackers?
I was going to say the safety room got crushed.
Yep.
Yeah, it did.
Bassa or Kaiser, maybe. I feel like either one of those guys.
I'll go edge first.
Okay.
Let's see. Man,
is it a size thing? Is it a size thing for Jared Ivey?
Maybe. He's been an interesting one. I think people are also like a little worried that his production came because he played opposite of Umani Mellon. So I can see both of those things being factors. All right, I'll go back to the corner class. Let's see. And I will go Jabbar Muhammad here for corner.
Small guy, 5'9", huh?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with him because I think it's some nickel insurance because he played some nickel at Oregon and outside corner while he was at Washington. And I think he would be a guy that can play inside out and also some insurance in the slot for Cooper DeJean if the Eagles decide, hey, we want to move DeJean back outside, if they don't feel comfortable with like Keely Ringo or some other or Adoree Jackson playing opposite Quinyon Mitchell. So I think for Muhammad, he's more of a depth player here, and a guy that you just take and maybe he can make the team make the 53 and be more of a depth player in the secondary.
Keely Ringo is penciled in as QB2 at this point outside.
Yeah, I would say pencil in. They're definitely going to give him every chance they can to win the job. I think similar to what they did with Tyler Steen last year, even though Mekhi Becton ended up getting the right guard spot. They went into the summer basically having Steen penciled in as right guard until someone shows they can overtake him. So I think the Eagles are kind of at this point where they kind of want their younger players to play a little bit more and be a little bit more set and letting those guys develop. So.
All right, you're up again at 165.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Elijah Roberts here, and continue to add to the defensive line room. Since we're keeping this pick here, he's a guy they brought in for a 30 visit. A guy that's more of a power rusher, has played 3 tech, has played 5 tech, has played stand up edge at SMU. Started his career at Miami, followed the SMU coach over to SMU, and he's been a really productive player along that defensive line. And I like the alignment versatility he brings, a guy that can rush from both the inside and out. But I think his most effective pass rushing ability is when he's more on an inside track and winning against guards, because I think he has the size and power to overwhelm guards with his ability. And I think he has a little bit of quickness on the interior versus being more of a stand-up guy. So I think he's a guy you could bring in to be a little bit more of the versatile piece where maybe on running downs you have him out on the edge, but on passing downs you reduce him down to the inside.
All right, makes sense. Pull the trigger. In your last one, you had a bunch of picks in a row right here in the 5th round.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's see. I'll look at the interior offensive line group and see maybe.
I don't think I can do all three at one time. We'll start off with guard, I guess.
Yeah. Let's see what's available at center. And then we'll take a look one more time at tackle and see. Trying to think.
Back to the big board too, so you can see everything.
Yeah. Can you slow down a little bit? I just want to see who is all still around. We can go, if you can go back up real quick, we'll check out the safeties, because I still think they'll add at least one safety through the draft. Let's see. You can go back to the top. I think I'm gonna go Dante Trader Jr. here. I know he's a little bit lower here on the board. For PFN, but I really like Trader's ability, play kind of the dual safety role, a guy that can roll down to the box and be an extra defender inside the box. And I really like his coverage ability. I know he struggled a little bit this year. Maryland's defense struggled a little bit too. He was a little banged up, but off of his 2023 tape and some of the highs of 2024, I think he's a guy that can be a depth piece in the safety room that needs a little bit more depth. Obviously, they traded C.J. Gardner-Johnson to the Texans this offseason, and they have Sidney Brown penciled in to start opposite of Reed Blankenship. So I think that position is one maybe they might go a little bit earlier than round 5, but we'll pick up one for at least having a depth piece in the safety room.
How big of a loss is Gardner-Johnson for the Eagles? I feel like it's pretty. It's pretty provocative. People either love him or hate him in Philadelphia, from what I understand.
Yeah, it's going to be a big loss, especially in the short term.
Okay.
We'll see in the long term how big of it sets him back, maybe in the safety room. But I feel like that's the one position that the Eagles have kind of struggled with until Gardner Johnson came along. I know they had Malcolm Jenkins for quite a while, but I thought the safety room in general had been a little bit in flux until they got Reed Blankenship recently, and obviously senior Gardner Johnson 2 of the last 3 years. So I think it'll be interesting to watch for sure.
All right, Washington back up on the board. Just kind of a quick refresher. Our picks: Jihad Campbell, Jaden Higgins, Quincy Riley. Our 3 picks. 2 more to go.
Devin's over there with the Eagles. They got like 10 picks. It's a
I
long
know.
ass list.
I thought it was the big board for a second.
You got to scroll down to get all the Eagles picks. They did like 3 lonely picks for the Commanders.
I know.
Yeah, I think definitely top. I would say remaining need is at least add to the edge rushing room.
We'll take a look.
So so we'll take a look at the edge rushing class. It's not great. Let's see what we got. Trying to think. We'll go to take a look at the. We'll take a look at the linebacker. No.
Yeah, because we already had Jihad Campbell.
Yeah. We'll take a look at the corner or the defensive tackles, actually.
Okay.
See, I really like who's on the board here. So I'm gonna add Ty Robinson here as kind of a depth player. I think maybe a guy that could push for a roster spot, but I like Ty Robinson. I think he's more of a throwback type of player, really rugged player, aggressive, strong hands, has some juice as a pass rusher, interior pass rusher, and I think you can play him as a 4-3 defensive end on running downs and be kind of a run stopping type of player. So I like Robinson here is kind of a depth piece along defensive line room. I know Washington has a really good group in the interior, so I think adding him to that room will bring some more depth.
All right, sounds good.
While this thing wraps up here, I'm curious some of the guys that you've watched this cycle that maybe you were surprised by that you assumed you'd be lower on, that you're higher on now, and maybe vice versa, like a guy you thought for sure was going to be something, and after you watch the tape, you're like, maybe not so much.
Yeah, I'll start with the latter. I think Deion Walker is a kind of the easy choice here on a guy that thought was going to be, much higher than he probably will. Just because I feel like, it seems like I know there's been reports of he's played with a back injury, and if that's true, this certainly hampered what he was able to do, this past season, and he just played with such high pad level. Was inconsistent, was a impact player on as both as a pass rusher and a run defender, and I thought he'd be a little better than especially coming out of the summer where a lot of people thought he could be a potential first round pick. So he was a guy I think that was certainly a little bit disappointing. I think a guy that went back that I was pretty impressed with is Ozzie Trapillo, the tackle from Boston College.
Right? Yeah.
I watched him, I think probably leading up to the Senior Bowl. I wasn't super impressed. Just because I felt like he played pretty high, and obviously he's 6'8", so his pad level is naturally going to be high. But on the second rewatch, I came away really impressed, and also how well he tested at the combine and that type of athlete he is. Really turned my head and open my eyes to a player that he can be, and he has both tackle experience, play both sides of the line, and I think he can be, one of those developmental tackles that can start in the next few years.
Yeah, George, the offensive line coach for the Commanders, went to his pro day.
Oh, okay, interesting. I didn't realize that. Okay.
I think they might have had him. He either was in for a 30 or he's coming to this big Top Golf 30 event that they do now every year.
Okay, interesting. Okay, cool. All right, last pick on the board. T45. Looking at Washington.
All right. I'm gonna go Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt from Arizona. I really like, and I think the Commanders are at least going to draft a running back, I think, at some point in the
I
draft.
agree.
Or pick a one via UDFA, and maybe Krosky Merritt is a UDFA type player, just because his last season was taken away. It's a Shrine Bowl game MVP, a guy that has really good vision, really good feel to find cutback lanes, can make guys miss at the second or third level, and just a really good player. I know you got to go back to 2023 to really get a full view of him, and some of what he did at the Shrine Bowl, but I think he's going to be a guy that surprises a lot of people, and gets some playing time as a rookie and is really productive. And I just like his complementary fit in the Commanders running back room.
Absolutely. I believe he came for a 30 visit as well in Washington, so there are some ties there. Makes sense. All right, let's pull the trigger. Let's see what the final tally looks like.
How many of the drafts have you been to now, Devin?
This will be my second. I went to the first one that I went to was in 2023 in Kansas City, which is really nice. I like the city of Kansas City, and it was a great host. So I'm looking forward to see, because I've been up to Green Bay before. It's not like a super big city. It's just pretty much like the Packers and the city a little bit surrounded by it. But I'm interested to see on how exactly it all looks and what it what the turnout will be.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Interesting names on this one, Georgia. I'd be ecstatic if Jihad Campbell was there. There were a couple other names there, and it also just shows you the difference in where the two franchises are at right now. Like,
absolutely,
the fan base wants the Commanders to move all over the board and get a haul like this. But what's the real chance? And we've done this with the Commanders before with trades where what's the likelihood 96, 161, and 164 are going to be premier players? You can afford to do that when you're the Eagles. With the Commanders, they can't afford to miss on those draft picks,
Absolutely. It's a blessing and a curse, Doug. We saw the Deebo Samuel trade. We saw the Laremy Tunsil trade. You're adding established players to your team, but at the consequence of giving away draft picks, which is there's a pro and con to each. I think we did. Washington needs to accelerate the process with the rookie window with Jaden Daniels on our team. So I do feel like we had to get rid of some picks, but as you can see, our draft haul is a lot smaller than the Eagles. Another trend that I see coming away from the draft is it's interesting, right? Like I think Jihad Campbell's a fantastic pick. And we did a mock draft before, Doug, where I selected Emeka Egbuka, right? If you take the BPA at 29, I feel like it's a slippery slope. You want to get that awesome player, but you're going to miss out on that edge rusher, I feel, because you have to get 1 at 61 or they're long gone, in my opinion. I think that's what kind of happened on this draft. But, walking away with Campbell and Higgins, I'm not complaining one bit. I think it's pretty good. 2 good additions there as well. So it's interesting.
Yeah, you're not going to fix them all in 1 year. We've got to add as much premier talent as we can. I like the idea of like a Jaden Higgins. I don't think like a Trey Harris will make it that far from but that kind of body shape is not what we have on the team currently, and so it'd be great. Devin, man, this was fantastic. It's always great to have you on. We really appreciate it. And once the season starts back up, we'll do an opposition Wednesday and talk some more ball, buddy.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys having me on, and always good to go kind of through this process because you feel like you gotta you can figure out how the board is gonna fall, but you just never know. So I think it's always good to try and talk through the different scenarios and see how it all shapes out.
And the sweater game is crazy, right?
Yeah, sharp. Today,
I brought rocking a black t-shirt. I kind of feel underdressed for the episode. This must be. Yeah, but have a safe trip out there to the draft next year, and we'll holler at you down the road.
Yeah, fun of the draft.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Okay.